we will start.
Is there anybody on?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to think if somebody can't hear me, Kathy, if you're there, if you can call me and let me know if everything's good, because on my screen it says the attendees are still on hold, but Dan said that he said it's live. So thank you for joining us today, and we're going to start off with Barb Pinkala from NIPSCO. We're going to be discussing the EV program, electric vehicle program, and what NIPSCO is doing, and then we're going to switch it over to Argonne National Laboratories' Dan Santini, and hear what he has to say about the charging stations and the technology behind all of this. So whenever you're ready, Barb, you can go ahead and...
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
And now,
good morning, everybody. I'll start with my presentation. Hi, my name is Barb Pinkala. I am with NIPSCO, and I'm the program manager for NIPSCO's In Charge Electric Vehicle Program at home and around town. What I'm going to do is just basically go over a presentation that was made some time ago for when we first kicked off the program, to just give you a little bit of background on what the program is, the eligibility, and just sort of talk about phase 2. Okay. So again, I'm going to talk about the program goals and objectives, the phase 1 part of the program, which is the In Charge at Home, an overview, the eligibility, how to enroll, give you a little update, the challenges and opportunities we've seen thus far, and our next steps. Phase 2 of the program will be around town. I'll talk a little bit about those goals and objectives, our plan, some of the challenges and opportunities we think we may have with that part of the program, and the next steps. Okay, so our overall program goals and objectives of this program is to increase the overall awareness and education regarding plug-in electric vehicles and to remove the barriers for consumers. We're going to remove those barriers. Our plan is by education and outreach and through financial incentives. We want to encourage off-peak charging of electric vehicles as opposed to on-peak to reduce impacts on our grid. We're also going to conduct research and analysis to get a little bit of idea on the usage patterns of customers and their charging station habits, how they're satisfied with our program or what they want to see in the future, learn a little bit more about the needs of the early adopters. We've conducted a penetration study and infrastructure plan to see where best to put the public charging stations. We want to encourage regional economic development, reduce dependence on foreign oil, and reduce greenhouse gases. Okay, the benefits to consumers in our region is cleaner air. Our program, since it's supplied, like all the energy that will be used by our charging stations, we want to supply with green energy. We'll have 0 vehicle emissions. The consumer savings will be up to $4,000 a year versus gasoline. You can recharge at home during the off-peak hours instead of going to the gas station, and there are lower operating costs compared to gasoline vehicles. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about our program that we call At Home, which is phase 2. This is basically a concentration of the program targeting the home consumer is phase 1. So phase 1 was approved by our IURC, Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, on February 1st of this year. It's a 3-year pilot, which is in effect through January 31st, 2015. The key features of the program is a financial incentive to consumers up to $1,650 per residential customer. And that basically is towards the purchase and installation of a level 2 electric charging station and any electric required upgrades that may have to happen to get the voltage to 240. There's also, we provide a free second meter that's dedicated to that charging station to allow it to obtain the usage information so that we can monitor the on-peak and off-peak usage and be able to supply free charging during the nighttime hours of 10 p.m. through 6 a.m. Our administrator for this program is 350 Green. The eligibility to participate in this program, you must be a NIPSCO residential electric customer with an active account. You have to have an EV that's either owned or leased by you or another resident living at the same address. And your auto must be SAEJ 1772 compliant. What that means is that it has to have a plug that looks like that little picture to the right there. And it has to be approved by the Department of Transportation. It can't be a something like a Honda that you change into an electric vehicle yourself. You also have to have proof of ownership or delivery of the electric vehicle, and we require that the charging station be hardwired to a dedicated circuit. And we do that because we're providing free service for the off-peak hours, and we want to make sure that it's only for electric vehicle charging, not other types of electric end uses. Okay, to enroll, basically I have a website there, but you basically go to our website, to our InCharge program. There's a pre-installation survey that you complete. You check a box that agrees to the terms and conditions of the InCharge program at home. And going forward, if you'd like, you can schedule a home assessment to begin. Basically, the estimate will give you an estimate regarding how much it would cost to install your choice of charging station at your home and if there would be any required upgrades. If you decide to go further and do the program and get a charging station, you just schedule installation, and then once it's completed, the subcontractor will let us know, and then we will call you, NIPSCO will call you to schedule the sub-meter free of charge. Right now, where we have cars that we know of, and these are residential cars, they're not fleet cars. There's more on here that are electric fleet, but they're not shown. To date, this is where we know that there are electric vehicles. They may be more, but these are the ones that we know because they've contacted us about the program. So to date, we've had 41 enrollments to our program with 30 confirmations. That being said that 30 people are going ahead with the program. The remainder either were not eligible, they were a NIPSCO gas customer, not an electric, or they were out of our service territory and they weren't eligible for the program. When looking at the types of cars that these people have, they're mainly Chevy Volts. We've got about 20 Chevy Volts, 6 Nissan Leafs, 4 Think City vehicles, 2 Mitsubishi Eyes, and 1 smart car. But as you can see, the main concentration is in, which you would expect, is in the higher populated areas around the Chicago area along the lakefront. Okay, the challenges that we've had and we've seen so far with this program is when we launched it, we basically had 2 months to try to get this up and running from the time the commission approved our order, which was pretty quick. We thought we would only have about 3 cars at the beginning, and after day 1 we had, I think, I don't know what it was, 16 or 17, but we had an expected number of initial enrollments from customers that had already purchased cars or were purchasing in the process of purchasing cars and getting them from the surrounding areas, because no one in our initial area in Indiana was selling those cars at the time, so they were coming in from, they were being brought in. A major thing that we've seen a problem with is permitting and inspection process. It differs from county to county, city to city, and that's something we would really like to concentrate on going forward, is getting that smoothed out. The permitting costs are different. Some counties don't even require a inspection or a permit, and others do. There's costs that range anywhere from like $15 to almost up to $100. Another challenge that we've seen is in the second meter installation process. It's not a normal meter that we put in, so sometimes once the contractor puts in the charging station and we're ready for the second meter, the customer would call, and that would set off a process by where they would think that it's just a regular watt-hour meter, which doesn't basically divide intervals into like on-peak and off-peak. So we have to make sure and clarify with the customer that don't call NIPSCO. NIPSCO will call you and schedule that meter because it's a different type of meter. It's basically it's called a large 3M meter, which is in an interval meter, as opposed to just a meter that would just accumulate all of your usage and not tell us when it's on peak or off peak. And one of the major challenges is that our EVs are not readily available in this territory. We're going to be starting to get them in late 2012 to early 2013, and that's when we expect to see a uptick in the applications for our program. Talking about Phase 2, Phase 2 is our in-charge electric vehicle program around town. And we'll talk about that. Let's see here. The goals and objectives of Phase 2 is to build on our residential at-home program. And we want to meet the customer needs and reduce barriers further as opposed to the charging station inside their home. We want to reduce customer range anxiety, which is basically a customer being concerned that they might not make it home and run out of electricity and not be able to make it home. We want to provide incentives for employee workplaces, apartments, company fleets, municipalities, and retail establishments, and in particular along major transportation corridors so that consumers that have electric vehicles can find places to charge their car to and from work and to and from any errands that they would run. And we want to promote common regulatory policies, and that is in particular with the permitting and the inspection process and signage around town. We would like to create jobs and economic growth and promote clean transportation. Also part of that program is going to be understanding and monitoring the impact on our grid. We want to know where these cars are being placed, so or the charging equipment, so that we don't have any kind of reliability problem on our distribution system. The proposal for Phase 2 is we want to keep it open and collaborative to build a sustainable model. We want to focus mainly on the deployment of charging stations at the workplace and public charging stations. We are including like fleet charging stations and apartment charging stations, but mainly we want to, we figure that the first place you're going to charge your car is at home, and mainly the use of a car is to get to and from work. So if we can get charging at the workplace, that would really help our effort. We would like to provide education and outreach to our targeted sectors, and we plan on providing incentives for employee workplaces and the targeted areas that I'm speaking of workplaces, apartments, fleets, municipalities, commercial and retail establishments, and along major transportation corridors. In addition, we'd like to leverage NIPSCO's investment and build on partnerships and seek potential grant opportunities that we could use to fulfill the remaining part. Like we would provide 50%, and hopefully if we could get grant opportunities that could fulfill the remaining part of the funding. The target locations, as I've said before, is workplaces and universities, apartments, commercial and retail establishments, fleets, municipalities, and major transportation corridors. To give you an idea about the type of charging stations, some of you probably already know this, but if you don't, I'm just going to go over this really quick. Level 1, this is basically the, just like your outlet. Level 1 is 120 volt. You just plug the car into your outlet, any outlet. It takes the longest time to get a full charge, basically 8 to 15 hours. It's more appropriate for home and office. Level 2, you can see the different types of level 2 stations there, and those are self-sustaining, but you can just get one that you can hook onto a wall or a pole. These are a little bit more fancy. They require a 240 volt, and it would reduce the time to charge your car basically in half. And these are more applicable to offices and retail. And then your DC quick chargers is over to the right. These are basically put on highways and commuting routes, and it reduces the time to charge a vehicle to 10 to 30 minutes. What we're thinking about doing right now is our incentives that we're thinking, our financial incentives for these different targeted groups. I'm showing them here right now for level 1, level 2, and DC quick charge. They're subject to change, but this is our current thoughts on this, and we are going to be getting feedback on this. For a level 1, which is just a plug, but it would be a parking spot, a designated parking spot for employees or public to park. You would have, we would allow $5,500 per parking spot, or per level 1 10 volts. Level 2, we're thinking about a $3,000 incentive, and that's for one port. Some of these charging stations have 2 ports, which means that 2 cars can plug into them. And if you have one of those, it's an additional $1,500 that we would be willing to provide a financial incentive for. And then DC quick charge is $37,500. The current public charging stations that we have is shown on to the left. There's one at NIPSCO here. There's some stations in the town of Dyer, and there's a station at Michigan City Mall. There's also stations that I found that are at dealerships. I didn't include those on here right now, but these are the basic public, the main public ones that I found. In the future charging stations, according to the infrastructure plan that we've had done for us, is shown on the right. So you can see that there's a quite bit of different picture of and number of charging stations that we anticipate over the next 5 years. So this is not to say this is what we plan on doing tomorrow. We want to phase in these charging stations as the growth of adoption of electric vehicles occurs. And you'll notice that most of the charging stations are concentrated around high population areas, like along the lakefront or northeast Indiana. The challenges that we have are going to be getting that message out to these targets, these targeted subsectors, the benefits of these charging stations to the host or to the employer or to the municipality, and explaining various business models, like should they be public? Do you just want to have it for your employees? Do you want to charge? Do you not want to charge? Can this go towards lead points for a green building, things like that? So we plan on trying to have a targeted education and outreach program that would go out to each individual sector, explaining to them about charging stations, what their alternatives are, what their benefits are, what their costs are, and different ways that they could either charge or not charge. Another challenge is getting federal, state, municipal support, standardizing that permitting and inspection process. That's something we would like to see. It's not only this is not only a problem that we've experienced here in Indiana ever since the start of electric vehicles. Permitting and inspection has been a problem throughout the country as far as different permitting requirements, different qualifications for putting in a charging station, and the inspection process. So I think DOE has come out with a proposal of a kind of standard permitting and inspection process, and that's something that we would like to see go forward in our area to make this a lot easier going forward. Also, we would like to get support from our state to try to get DC quick charging along major highway locations, and to start putting up road signs so that people can see where these charging stations are. When I was out in California, they have quite a bit of charging stations, and you'll be driving along the road, and it's pretty easy to see where a charging station is coming up. Like they actually have, you know, charging station turn here. And I think that's important, and that's some of the help that we're going to be needing. Also is, you know, getting grants and leverage funding to help support our program. Understanding that concentration of level 2 and quick charge on our grid. And we are going to have to make sure that when we support these charging stations, if NIPSCO is going to help finance a charging station, since we're providing energy usage to those charging stations that are green, we need to know the usage of those charging stations so that we can obtain renewable energy credits, or RECs. So any station that NIPSCO would provide funding for is going to have some kind of usage obtained for the usage of those charging stations, so that we can know how much is being used and we can obtain the RECs form. This next slide is basically just showing you the importance that this is not just something that one sector can do. You know, it's not just a utility. A utility can't do this on its own. A government can't do it on its own. For this to be successful, it needs to be supported and worked through various sectors, such as private market players, the local government, and state government. Basically, the government serves sort of as a liaison between stakeholders to signal, providing influence, and trying to minimize governmental barriers. So you can see here that the consumers and fleet operators are basically one sector, and then there's the product and service providers, which are utilities, infrastructure providers, and automakers, and then there's all the government and civic groups on the bottom. And to make anything like this successful, it really needs stakeholders that come together as a team to try to work together to make this possible. Our next steps is basically to expand our education and outreach of our current program. Specifically, we want to talk to dealerships. That's the next thing that we're going to be doing, is we're going to try to be partnering with dealerships to make sure that they know about our program, what's involved, and so that when a consumer comes in and is interested in electric vehicles, they can tell that consumer about our program and the benefits. And the next thing after that is we're going to be meeting with our stakeholders to discuss phase 2 of our proposal, and then we'll be filing it with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And that's all I have as far as an update for today.
Thanks, Barb. Yeah, I don't see any questions yet, but if you guys have questions for Barb, we'll be sending out contact information for everybody, and if you have anything, or you can raise your hand on the screen. And right now I'm going to turn it over to Dan Santini from Argonne National Laboratories. Just give me a second, Dan. And all right, you're all good, Dan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie and Barb. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Santini from Argonne National Laboratory, and I'm here on behalf of the Department of Energy Clean Cities programs, but I'm speaking for myself as a technical expert participating in Clean Cities work. We're at a stage where it's important to get the information out, get the word out, and improve the information as we go along. So I've started out with websites that the public and businesses and municipalities can take advantage of in their as they think about implementing plug-in vehicles. Obviously, the South Shore site is going to be helpful for the local information. For the national information, the Clean Cities website is a broad website covering alternative fuels of all types, but you can dig deeply into it, and it has a lot of details on plug-in vehicles. There's an alternative fuel and advanced vehicle data center run by the National Renewable Energy Lab. And then we have a Clean Cities Coordinator Contact Information Coalition website. One private or NGO site we mentioned here is Plug-in America. There's a lot of information on the general information on the web aside from that source as well. The sites look like this. Clean Cities is the broad website. Another one that didn't mention in the prior slide is fueleconomy.gov, which is run by the Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency. And that is a very good source of information that's about vehicles, allowing you to compare light-duty vehicles, not fleet vehicles. It has technical information, even has cost. There's information reported on actual fuel use by people that own hybrids. Tend to report their fuel use very extensively in other economy cars, but you don't find many reports on BMWs and Cadillacs. Alternative fuels and advanced vehicle data center. The two things that could be of interest. There's legislation and public policy information by state, so you can check and see if we've got it right for the state of Indiana, and as a starting point for Indiana, and also the Alternative Fuels Data Center. The site, the recharging location or charging location. Name is slipping. Anyway, the charge location across the country, and hopefully Barb's list of existing charge points and the Clean Cities or the Alternative Fuels Data Center website are comparable. The details are extensive on hybrid and plug-in electric vehicles. Barb mentioned that the Department of Energy has proposed a standardized permitting approach, and you can find on the web an electric vehicle supply equipment template and diagram. So this can be a starting point for communities in Indiana, and hopefully without a whole lot of deviation. It would be the automakers, I know, and the utilities would both like to have a relatively standard and reliable permitting process. It would help the technologies succeed. There's also a GEO Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment Forum for sharing of information. The goals of that are to avoid duplication of data collection efforts for the locations, to enhance the quality of the data for the term I was looking for, station locator, and this will also ensure that DOE collects the best information and puts it up and makes it nationally available, and also presents an opportunity to strengthen relationships and improve communication. I'm going to take a step back here. I forgot to mention, since I work at Argonne National Laboratory, although the Clean Cities websites and the fueleconomy.gov is about getting the rubber on the road right now, our job is to look at the transportation technology in the future, 10 years out and so forth. So I snuck in the website for Argonne National Laboratory in case you're interested in looking at future technology and testing results. There's a vehicle cost calculator that the National Renewable Energy Lab has developed. It's on the Alternative Fuels Data site. And if we have enough time, I'll show you a slide that I generated playing with that. You're able to compare several cars at the same time, and it computes the total cost of ownership for a number of years that the vehicle has been in the fleet, assuming continued ownership. Training and education work is going on at the national level by Clean Cities. We've got a residential charging installation video that's helpful for instructing electrical contractors and installers, permitting officials and inspectors. And this is developed with a collaborative effort between Clean Cities, OEMs, utilities, and electric vehicle supply equipment providers. We've also conducted a community readiness workshop in June in 2011, and this lasted a half a day. It's up, the presentations were recorded on video, so there's a lot of information there. Just be aware that if you're going to look at it all, it's a half a day's worth. Publications. There's hybrid plug-in electric vehicle fact sheet. There are plug-in electric vehicle handbooks. One is missing here. I'll mention that. But consumers, fleet managers, public charging station hosts, I guess maybe workplaces covered here, and electrical contractors. But workplace charging is the point that we probably need to develop a handbook in that particular area. And also we've got deployment case studies that you can take a look at and see what's happened in other states, other communities, if you're a community. There may even be information for dealers on how successful dealers have operated. I'm not sure about that. The pattern that we've seen for the fuel-efficient hybrid vehicles it's been developing over a number of years, and what's happened is that the success has been in cars, and light truck shares. There's a degree of success for a while, but never like the cars, and then light truck share has dropped off recently. So we're seeing specialization of electric drive in cars and in fuel-efficient cars, but they're increasing in acceptance. A point that I don't have a slide for it, but a point that we have recently tracked is that the sales success of the Chevrolet Volt to date looks similar over time to the sales success of the Toyota Prius. Where are the opportunities? Ford and General Motors have been emphasizing home and workplace charging. Nissan, Mitsubishi have been emphasizing the importance of public charging for electric vehicles. This seems to be an important attribute. We had a workplace, or excuse me, a charging pyramid, which was presented by Ford and GM, and it had 3 levels: residential, workplace, and then public. But we've been working in this, and we've come to realize it's a little bit more complicated than that. So we put together a revised charging pyramid. We realize that we have to treat single-family homes differently from multifamily. In those locations, alternating current level 1 and 2 charging equipment is suitable. Barb showed you that some of that equipment. Employees at work, they tend to park the vehicle for a relatively long time, so both level 1 and level 2 can work there. For fleets, very often you want to turn the vehicle around and maybe use it, recharge it. Intensive use of these vehicles is necessary to pay them off, so you step up to DC charging capabilities there. In public charging, level 2, actually level 1, level 2, Barb showed that currently in Indiana you've got both level 1 and level 2 in public places, but it's thought that the best strategy there is level 2 in DC, what's called level 1. The current charging equipment for the Mitsubishi and Nissan is 50 kilowatt DC of Japanese design. And then Intermetro along the interstates is the top of the pyramid. The area of interest that I'm personally working on is multiple charges per day at the home and at the workplace. The vehicles come in a range of sizes and performance capabilities and charging needs. The plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, the picture here is the Ford C-Max. It's coming, has about a 10 kilowatt hour battery. Ford's also going to have a Fusion plug-in hybrid. Honda's going to have one coming in 2013. Actually, the kilowatt hour range goes from 4.2 kilowatt hours to 10. The plug-in Prius is 4.2 kilowatt hours. Charge power required for these is currently about 1.4 kilowatts to 3.3. That's level 1 and relatively low power level 2. The Chevrolet Bolt is the next category that's available. It has 16 kilowatt hours of capacity, and it also is available with 1.4 to 3.3 kilowatts. As I understand it at this time, there's not a plan with these vehicles that can run on gasoline to include a fast charging port. On the battery electric vehicles, on the other hand, they're being introduced with charge powers. The Nissan Leaf was initially at 3.3 kilowatts, and you can buy, it has a separate port that you can have 50 kilowatt supply equipment or charge point installed with an optional package. It's got more than 20 kilowatt hours of capacity. The Ford Focus battery electric vehicle is going to go to about 6.6 kilowatts, I believe. And then the Tesla Model S vehicle is just now coming out and has at least 3 different battery size options, as I understand it. And you can buy 1 or 2 chargers for it at home, and those go from 10 to 20 kilowatts. At EVS 26, we saw that the Toyota RAV4 electric vehicle is going to also have a 10 kilowatt charger. So this is this kilowatt level in the neighborhood is a little bit more concerned to the utilities. DC fast charging for this one is at 35 kilowatts. It runs on a different set of charging systems than the other 3 that we see here. Sales rates so far, I mentioned that the Bolt is doing as well as the Prius originally did. The battery electric sales actually peaked earlier and have dropped off somewhat as the plug-in hybrid options have come on. They've done well. We saw Barb found that the majority of vehicles in northern Illinois were the Bolt, but there certainly was a significant amount of electric vehicles as well. Northern Illinois is and northern Indiana have a kind of a tongue of wind available in their areas. It's unfortunate that the wind availability, the greatest amount, is available where there's very few people in the country, but Texas, a bit of Oklahoma, northern Illinois, northern Indiana have more wind than others. And it's possible, if you go to the Office of Vehicle Technologies website, Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy website of the Department of Energy, you can find credits across the United States. I've listed 3 different possibilities for Indiana residents, not necessarily in this area yet, but what you can see is Duke Energy is first. Now, Duke Energy actually is out of North Carolina, so most of their service area is outside of Indiana, and they charge you 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour more to buy wind, photovoltaic, landfill gas, digester gas, renewable energy. I personally, in the Tennessee area, just signed up for 450 kilowatt hours a month at a little less than 2 cents a kilowatt hour. And both of those utilities are outside of the area where wind is readily available. However, here in Indiana, the incremental costs are, for Indianapolis Power and Light, 0.35 cents per kilowatt hour, and less than 1 cent for the co-ops in the Wabash Valley Power Association to offer the renewable energy credits. It was mentioned by Barb that NIPSCO is going to provide free electricity for, while I don't think she mentioned, I think it's true that the free electricity will also be renewable electricity where renewable energy credits have been purchased. One reason I bring this up is that what we're finding nationally is that there's a significant portion of the purchasers of the electric vehicles that are interested in solar energy so far. So solar and renewables, the question is whether this is an attractive feature that matches up with the consumer preferences for electric drive. What we are finding is that the highest priority, I apologize for this complicated graph, but it's 2 basic points. One, that hybrids and plug-in hybrids reduce gasoline use a lot, and the hybrids reduce greenhouse gases, and the plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles can offer a wide range of possible outcomes as far as greenhouse gases go, depending on what the source is. So if you use natural gas in a combined cycle power plant, and if you mix in wind, which is a trend in the United States, you actually can do better than a hybrid vehicle for greenhouse gases. And customers are interested in both features, but the lead feature is reduced petroleum use, energy security issues. Barb mentioned that up to $4,000 of saving is possible, and what I've said in this slide is that $1,000 is what you get from using the fueleconomy.gov website and taking their average vehicle and the average driving and comparing compact-sized vehicles against vehicles with electric drive. That's the green. However, I would emphasize that this is average. So, and this is 1 charge a day. So if we can accomplish workplace charging and home charging for people that drive a lot of miles per year, maybe we can do better. And there was an example when I gave a version of this presentation in Valparaiso, and I met a couple that was substituting a Chevrolet Suburban. They kept their Suburban, but they basically parked it and they were driving a Volt, and I'm willing to bet that they're in the $4,000 category. They were paying for all their Volt expenses with the savings on gasoline from the parking the Suburban. HEVs require less maintenance, and we anticipate that this is going to be the case for plug-in vehicles as well, and that's accounted for in the vehicle cost calculator. One of the things that you need to be cautious about for the pure electric vehicle is extreme weather capability. In cold temperature conditions, the range of a pure electric vehicle that's been sitting out in the cold drops significantly. So what we found from EV Advocate from Nova Scotia was that the problem that they ran across was when there was an unexpected snowstorm in the afternoon, their EVs often had trouble getting all the way back to base. So this is the key situation that a potential EV buyer needs to worry about in this region in the middle of the winter. But if we can accomplish workplace charging, these vehicles allow you to tap into your computer and say, charge me up or heat me up before I leave. So they would be able to deal with that. And this is I just copied the information out of the Volt and Leaf user's guide that tells you that you've got this ability to remotely either heat or cool your vehicle before you depart. It both makes you comfortable and the battery comfortable, and you and the vehicle both operate better when this is true. Given that it gets hot in the summer in Indiana, there's a lot of air conditioning, and because there's air conditioning, the kilowatt power capabilities in most of the houses are adequate to deal with the plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles that have 3.3 kilowatt or 1.4 kilowatt charging at home. It should be quite manageable here. We didn't see any Teslas in northern Indiana, but those, if an average household bought a Tesla, that could be a problem. Average households probably don't, so they may have a mansion, and maybe it will have far greater capacity, and it won't be a problem for the Tesla as well. The DC fast charging is off the chart here. That the Tesla goes at, if you buy the 2-charge option, 19 kilowatts. The CHAdeMO charger is 50 kilowatts at DC fast charging. The question is whether Indiana is going to be a priority, but what we found from Barb is that it won't matter whether it's made a priority or not. People are going to go out of state and buy the vehicles, it looks like. That was an interesting observation she made. At any rate, that should be encouraging for dealers that are thinking about marketing the vehicles here in northern Indiana. What Nissan has told us is that the Leaf is selling best in states that have provided incentives. It sold better in states that had one type of incentive, and sold even better in states that had 2 incentives. And so prior installation, as I mentioned earlier, for pure electric vehicles of infrastructure, according to Nissan, is proving to be a valuable aid to their sales. So that's something that northern Indiana can think about. Barb showed you the different charging equipment types. I think she showed the level 1 charging equipment is portable and has, many of them have handles, so you can just carry it around with you, take it away from the vehicle. Security is sometimes a concern, so this is an option if you're really security conscious. You can carry that equipment to some other location. What we're finding on the charging costs is that in the EV project, people cut off when the expenses get to be $2,500 or more. We haven't been told how many of the initial candidates were above 2,500, but the data is being generated. So, not every house is suitable. And then when we get to workplace charging, generally the expenses tend to be higher. You very frequently have to run conduit into a parking lot that is already paved, and you have to trench. And that cost actually is a bigger and more important factor than the cost of those stands and equipment that you saw on the other slide. So the question is whether the public has motivation to buy these vehicles now under current circumstances, and gasoline prices have come down a bit. I mentioned that we're looking at both workplace and home charging. So I ran the vehicle cost calculator. It also depends on what vehicle they're otherwise interested. Actually, some people are buying Volts, at least Volts, that would otherwise considered a BMW. And I know in Switzerland the Toyota Prius actually competed with BMW. So it just depends on the interest of the consumer. What I've done is I've got a BMW, a Buick Verano, a Volt, and a Leaf. I took half of the federal credit. Now, one of the things that the municipalities need to be aware of is that the federal credit doesn't pass through if you don't pay taxes. So this is one drawback of the way the federal credit works that we found to be an issue. And even for households, the $7,500, some wealthy households, some years, businesses, people who work in businesses may take losses. They wouldn't always recognize that credit. Anyway, what I did in the cost calculator was put in the federal credit, at half of the federal credit, more than average driving, 55 miles per day, 2 charges per day, more city driving than highway driving, $3.37 a gallon gasoline, which is actually less than what I saw driving down here. 11 cents a kilowatt hour of electricity. Note that the NIPSCO costs are going to be zero for a while, so that would bring the cost down, and it works out in that calculator to be about just under 20,000 miles per year. And according to those calculations, the Leaf is the cheapest vehicle. The Volt would beat a Verano after about 7 to 8 years of ownership. And if you're looking at these vehicles because they're unique and interesting, and you would have otherwise been interested in a BMW, you would actually save money if you did that. So our challenge nationally and at the federal level, one of the reasons we have this subsidy is that people at Argonne and other places think that there is a good reason to develop this technology and get it into the marketplace. So we're trying to put ourselves on a path where these things will work in the long term and stick in the market without subsidies by establishing production volume, production experience, learning by finding flaws in the vehicles and fixing them. Bolt already went through one of those episodes. And learning the best markets for the business cases so that the vehicles will stick if oil prices are moderate for a while, if we can find places, specifically I'm thinking of workplace and household charging. As we do this, we develop skills and we develop standards for automobiles for the charging equipment. Auto dealers learn how to deal with these vehicles. The charge equipment installers improve their technology, figure out how to get the cost down. First responders are taught how to deal with accidents, what special procedures are necessary, what kind of designs of the vehicles are better to protect first responders. then fleets learn, charge equipment owners learn about the customers, and the consumers themselves learn. Utility regulators and system operators and utilities learn how the vehicles interact with the grid, and how interested customers are in renewable energy, for example. And ultimately, recyclers and scrap yards are going to have to learn how to deal with the batteries and electric machinery. Anyway, that's it. I'm sure I went over time. I usually do. Thank you very much for your patience if you're on. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you're on.
Thanks, Dan. No, you were right on time, so it was perfect. But and also going along with the first responders training, we actually have one scheduled August 30th at the Ivy Tech in Valpo. And we're not sure on the exact time yet, but we will have more information being sent out in our August newsletter and in the following email following up on this webinar, which again the slides and the webinar itself will be available on our website, and that link will be sent out after the webinar is over. So let me check and see if anybody has any questions that I missed. And to the one question about 350 greens, about 350 green, that will not affect our program. Barb responded with me. So I don't see any other questions as of now. But again, the emails and the contact information will be sent out in the email, and everybody can follow up with Dan or Barb. And let me see. Nope. All right. And then we're all good. And thank you guys so much for attending the webinar, and have a great day. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Barb.